What is this IPR? I keep talking about IPR. IPR is interproximal reduction. You would have studied something called proximal stripping, reproximation, or proximal slicing. So basically, it is creating spaces or gaining spaces between the teeth by breaking the contact. So the point here is breaking the contact is very important because many doctors, they break it up to middle third and then the lower contact is not broken. So many a time in the lab when the doctor sends the cast, we see that the contact is not broken. So I'm going to give you certain tips here to guide you in performing better IPR. What are the tools I need? You have sophisticated oscillating hand pieces. You don't need them. I procured them much later in my practice, but I don't use them much. This is a gauge which helps you in measuring whether I've actually broken the contact, and it has to pass through easily between the contact. So you have as precise as a 0.1 mm leaf there. You have to place it between the teeth and you can see whether it is done, whether the contact has been broken. You have hand strippers, you have burrs, you have discs. What are these discs? I'll just come to that. So first you check with the floss whether your contact is tight, and then you have to create space by applying forces either with interproximal burrs or interproximal discs. What are the methods of IPR? Like I was mentioning, you have discs, you have burrs, you have strips. Burrs, 80% of the contacts are broken in my practice with burrs because it is faster. But initially, I would take a hand stripper, smoothen the contact, in fact, break the contact with that. Then I would use a burr so that I know that I've broken the contact. I won't be damaging too much of the tooth. So burrs using high-speed handpiece. You also have safe-sided and single-sided discs. So you don't get these protectors in India. So it's basically your straight handpiece which you place a burr and then you have to slice through the contact. So the burrs can be single-sided. You can see there's a coating at the end of the disc which is rough. Sometimes the coating is only one side. Suppose you want to prepare IPR on the mesial of upper central incisor. So the distal of the disc may be smooth. So you're actually cutting on only one side of the tooth. You don't want to cut on the other side, or you don't want to cut on the adjacent tooth, which is suppose you want to do in the midline and you want to do only on one. So you have to turn the disc in such a way that the rough surface faces the 1-1 and you are breaking only the 1-1 contact and not the 2-1. So you get single-sided and double-sided hand pieces. I mean discs. You get single and double-sided strips. So I usually use the strips once my contact is broken. Once I have measured it with the gauge, then I use a strip to smoothen the contact. It's very important that you're doing an iatrogenic problem. You're reducing a space. You're reducing space for the foot to get stuck. You're reducing space for future caries. So it's your duty to make sure that the contact is smoothened, whatever it takes. Even if it means 5 minutes extra time in your practice, please do it. It's important to smoothen the surface of the contact. There should be no ledges. There should be rough surface. It can deposit plaque and then tartar, and then you can have cavities. So it's important that you smoothen the contact. These are the gauges I was talking about. You have IPR gauges. So each gauge will have, it's not visible there anyway, 0.1 to 1 mm. Normally, we don't do a contact breaking, or you don't create space of more than 0.6 mm. The highest I've done ever is a 0.6 between two teeth. So 0.1 to 0.4 is normally what we advocate for contact. It's important to be gentle. It's important to be confident while doing. If too much of force is applied, we can give over pressure of the teeth, which is again problem. If you have a luxury of the patient can afford a GC tooth mouse, it's important, or you could do a fluoride application just after you prepare an IPR. That would be really good. And then usually I advocate use of a GC tooth mouse if I do prepare more than, suppose I'm doing an entire quadrant or entire lower anteriors or entire upper anteriors, I would advocate, I would probably include a GC tooth mouse in my practice, and I mean in my package which I've given to the patient, and I would give it free of cost, tell them to apply it every day before going to sleep. So it's make sure you have to also be ethical, right? You're inducing a problem, make sure the patient maintains that space. So the good thing is whatever space has been created between the two teeth, the aligner is going to close them. But what if you're not closed it perfectly, like naturally, maybe a 0.015 space. So if you're using tooth mouse, if the patient can floss, it would be great. Use of fluoride, yes, definitely. So you can see there the angulation of a disc or a saw, whatever you're using, has to be correct. If you don't use the correct angulation, you can see instead of grinding both the teeth, you're grinding too much on one tooth and less on the other side. So you can see here in the center, I have shown you a diagram where it's too flat. I don't want too much flat there. It has to be rounded. So I have to maintain the anatomy while I'm breaking the contact. If a tooth is rotated and I'm trying to break a contact, I have to tilt the burr or the disc in that rotated angle and have to do it. Otherwise, you can see here, I have done over preparation on that tooth, less on this side. Again, vice versa, here over preparation of the tooth, less on the side. So it's very important that the angle of the disc or the burr that you have placed between the two teeth contact has to be perpendicular to the contact. You can see here on the right side, I have a beautiful space between the two teeth. I have not damaged too much. I have given a straight contact breakage. On the left side there, I have messed it up. I have created a ledge, meaning I've broken the contact only 3/4. And sometimes because of saliva, you will think that you're broken, but actually you have to take a floss, pass it through the contact after you've done the IPR. So this is when the floss passes through from the incisor ledge to the gingiva gets displaced, it means that the contact is broken. Otherwise, you will end up having not broken the contact and you will think that you created 0.5 mm space between two central incisors, but the space remains even at the end and the lab may not take responsibility. Because when you do an intraoral scan or you send an impression, rubber base impression, you will realize that the lab will realize that your contact is not broken. It's a waste of time and effort.